Hello everyone, my name is Ali Balighi and I'm a doctorate student at Texas State University and my major is music composition. Today I'm very happy to present my paper named From Programmer to Composer, Creative Authorship in the Age of AI. Today I will reframe how we discuss AI in music. The central idea is not whether AI replaces the composer, but how it changes the composer's work. Instead of writing every note, the composer now designs systems, selects and builds datasets, and guides algorithmic behavior. In this sense, authorship becomes distributed across people, models, data, and interfaces. This shift opens new creative possibilities, but it also brings responsibilities. We need clear design choices, ethical reflection, and transparency about the tools we use. I will show practical ways to work with these systems while keeping artistic intention clear. AI system can now suggest motifs, complete phrases, and even produce entire piece. As a result, our creative workflow can be faster and more exploratory. However, there is a perception issue. Once a piece is labeled as AI generated, many listeners judge it more harshly. This bias influences reception, professional opportunities, and release strategies. At the same time, the legal and cultural frameworks around authorship and ownership are not fully adapted to hybrid creation. Understanding these tensions helps us design better processes, communicate our methods, and set realistic expectations for our audiences and collaborators. I propose that we treat AI as a co composer rather than a simple tool. The relationship is interactive. We shape the system, and the system responds in ways that can surprise and inform our next decisions. Authorship, therefore, is shared and negotiated over time, not fixed at the moment we press generate. The composer's role expands from execution to mediation, string how data models and human choices come together to form a piece. This framing helps us evaluate not only the final sound, but also the quality of the process that produced it. Think of code as a contemporary score. The algorithm we choose and parameters we set embody musical logic, rules for rhythm, harmony, texture, and form. A practical way to see this is as a loop data to model, and after that, output, and finally, human creation. But uh, as, a, as a loop, and then back again to the first step, I mean, data. Each path, each pass through the loop is a new compositional decision. Instead of fixing every event in advance, we design behaviors and constraints that produce material we can shape. This approach does not reduce authorship, it moves authorship into the design of the pipeline and the curation of its results. This diagram highlights where decisions live. We choose and prepare the datasets, decide on model architecture or tool, set parameters and prompts, and then select, edit, and arrange. the outputs. We also give feedback by adjusting inputs and constraints across iteration. Each step leaves a trace of human intention. When we present a work, it is not only the audio that matters. The architecture of choices, what we included, excluded, and emphasized, also carries artistic meaning, making those decisions visible, strengthens both authorship and accountability. In practice, the composer's labor falls into four rules. First, we curate data. We gather examples, clean them, and decide what represents the sound word we want. Second, we design constraints and interfaces. We set boundaries that make the system playable and musically meaningful. Third, we tune parameters and objectives so the model's behavior aligns with our aims. Finally, we interpret outputs. We select, arrange, and sometimes re-record or orchestrate the material. These rules still require taste and judgment. They simply act at different points in the workflow. Traditional composition often aims for detailed control. Generative practice shifts toward emergence. We design conditions where interesting patterns can arise, and we steward those processes rather than scripting every event. Historical examples like evolutionary or rule-based systems show this clearly, and modern deep learning extends it. The crucial point is to treat emergence as a feature. We invite novelty, then filter and refine it with human judgment. This balance between letting the system propose and choosing what to keep is a practical definition of co-composition. Hybrid authorship complicates ownership, credit, and responsibility. When a model contributes structure or style, who should be acknowledged and how? Our data choices also carry ethical weight. They may amplify certain traditions while leaving others invisible. To address this, we can document sources, note limitations, and be clear about what the system can and cannot do. Transparency does not diminish artistry, it supports trust and fosters a fair conversation with audiences, collaborators, and institutions that evaluate our work. One family of systems focuses on effective goals. We might train on emotion annotated examples and then aim for output that evoke a target feeling. The composer's work includes choosing appropriate datasets, setting target values, and evaluating the listening experience with tests or feedback. The result piece reflects a negotiation among model behavior, psychological cues, and human taste. This case illustrates how authorship is not only in the notes but also in the criteria we define and the judgments we make during evaluation. In an interactive installation or spatial work, the system can act like an ecosystem. Sound changes with sensor input, room acoustic, and audience movement. Here, the composer writes not a fixed sequence but a set of behaviors and mappings that respond over time. The artistic identity comes from how we design those relationships, what reacts to what, how quickly, and with what sonic consequences. This is a clear example where the instrument, the space, and the audience all participate in authorship. Different systems distribute labor differently, and we can evaluate them along a spectrum. In rule-based or supervised setups, the human workload leans toward algorithm and role design. In effect-targeted systems, it leans toward calibration and listening tests. In spatial ecosystems, it centers on interaction and environment design. When we critique or grade such project, we should ask not only does it sound good, but also what design work produced this and how well was that work done. This lens produces fairer and more precise evaluations. Perception studies suggest that labeling affects judgment. Listeners may score a piece lower if they learn it was AI generated after hearing it. As presenters, we can experiment with framing. One approach is to invite the audience to listen first, then review the process and discuss. Another is to foreground the collaboration and treat it as a part of the artistic statement. Either approach is valid. The goal is to promote fair listening and an informed conversation about method and value. Here are 4 practical habits. First, document datasets, training choices, and non-limitations. Even a short note builds trust. Second, expose musical parameters so the system becomes playable in rehearsal or performance. Third, keep human in the loop editing and selection to preserve taste and intention. Fourth, plan credit and acknowledgements for data contributors, model work, curation, and performance. These habits turn abstract ethics into concrete workflow steps that support quality and accountability. Our tools shape how can participate in AI-assisted composition. If tools are expensive or opaque, they restrict access and learning. When we share process and provide clear documentation, we help reduce barriers. We should also examine cultural representation in our datasets to avoid narrow stylistic outcomes, building with context in mind. For example, local audiences, educational settings, or community goals make the work more meaningful and reduce the risk of unintentional exclusion. And finally, to conclude, the composer is not disappearing. The role is being reframed. We act as mediators of imaginative systems, shaping conditions under which music can emerge. Creative identity becomes plural and evolving, distributed across human choices, data, and algorithm. The important questions then are not only who created the piece, but how it was made, with which materials, and under what values and constraints. These perspectives gives us clear methods, better evaluation, and richer artistic outcomes. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. Have a good night or day.